खत्म हो गया।
Are you able to see?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Shall
So
I
there
start?
are around there are 66 participants are there. Let's wait for 5 minutes, then we'll start.
Sure.
Okay. So good afternoon, everybody. Am I audible?
Good afternoon, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So once again, a warm welcome to all of you. So today we have Professor R.K. Shyamsundar, sir. So he is a professor in Department of Computer Science and Engineering. So he'll be talking about blockchains, bitcoins, and cryptocurrency. Okay. So let us start, sir.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Good afternoon. So welcome. So I guess in the morning you have. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So morning perhaps you have had some session in blockchain. I do not know what was the content, etc. But irrespective of that, what I am trying to do that is that I have broken up into many parts, and then at the end of each part, perhaps if you have questions, I will just try to answer because it is just through the virtual mode. So that gives an impression of what one has understood, etc. Kind of a frame. Is that fine?
Yes, sir. You all please participants unmute yourself. If you have
Yes,
any
sir.
if you have any queries, you put in chat box so that at the end we'll discuss. Okay. Okay, sir. Carry on, sir.
Okay. So now there is a lot of questions one has to ask on the blockchains. Why has it become important? And now the question is that in the current scenario, like a pandemic situation like COVID, if something had been on blockchain, would it have been useful? And now is that blockchain came first or cryptocurrency came first, and which is basic, whether the Bitcoin had a blockchain, and all these questions will arise. Some of these, as I said, that this is a huge topic. So I think some of them I will address and some of them I will not be able to address due to lack of time. And then one can always ask, nowadays what one is worried about is the security of the blockchain. And then of course, privacy is an important aspect. Does it uphold the privacy? Because everyone now has lots of privacy laws due to healthcare and several things are the other. And of course, as usual in the world, you have lots of myths. And so now here, can we bust the myths about blockchains? And then people also hear what is it called, the smart contracts whenever it comes to blockchain? What are the issues and how people are able to solve, or what is the thing that cannot solve? And there are, of course, varieties, a spectrum of applications from fintech to governance, etc. kind of a framework or the other, which I guess in the course of the FDP, somebody or the other will touch upon many of these aspects or the other. So it has this is a slide which was prepared slightly earlier. And so now you can say it has a huge market potential. For example, what is predicted is in some sense 10% of global GDP will be stored on blockchain or blockchain related technology by 2025. So now it is expected by 2025 there will be something like a 176 billion US dollars business that is coming into the picture. By now already, apart from by 2021, it was predicted before the pandemic that it was expected to reach about 23 billion US dollars. But one has to see based upon this, it may increase or decrease based upon what the actions have been from the many high-tech companies. So now if you look at Gartner prediction of 2016, it was something on the going up. That means that it is an emerging technology kind of a framework or the other. So now you try to see that you will be at that point so that this can be applied on varieties of things or the other. But now if you look in the latter, so now it has already come to the other cusp where it means the blockchain has somewhat reached some kind of a stability, and then people can see what is the thing that could be done, kind of a framework or the other. And so now I'm just going to roughly organize the talk from some kind of a eCash, and then see how one arrives at the Bitcoin structure and what are the properties that would be satisfied in this kind of a framework or the other. So you have to remember the most important properties of blockchain are immutable. That means that nobody can change it, and it is distributed. So that means that there is nothing, that means that if one part of the world is not working, things won't work. So it is distributed, so it becomes fault tolerant. And then you have public. That means that nobody can hide to say that this will not be available to you, etc. Everyone can equally participate based upon the technology, kind of a framework or the other. So now let us look at the eCash. Are you able to see it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So now here, the electronic cash, what is the challenge in the e-commerce? Cash satisfies certain properties. When you transform it into the electronic form, does it satisfy the same properties? See, a couple of properties, like, you can go to a shop and tender the cash and get whatever you want. He will not know, the vendor, that this is the currency that this person gave it for transacting on this kind of a framework. So in some sense, you have a notion of a privacy being preserved. And what is this other property is that once he gets the cash, and he can also give that cash to somebody else, kind of a framework, which will have exactly the same value, kind of a framework are there. But what is the big challenge? So now the question is that in the normal cash, that is currency, what is the thing? Is it possible that people can use the same cash? Let us say you have a currency note of 2,000 rupees. Can I give it for A and B both? The question is no, because there is a physical mutual exclusion that is there by definition. That means that if I give this, you are no longer possessing that, and so you will not be able to do that. So it can be used only once. The only probable chances are it may have been counterfeited and people may have misused. That's a small fraction, because the world works because a large fraction of the people follow the protocol. But now in the electronic form, suppose you say that I have this in this electronic form. After giving it to A, you also have the same copy. So that means that in the earlier classical currency, once you give the currency, you no longer have that currency. You are less than what you had. Suppose you had 90 and you would have 89 currency notes with you. Whereas in the digital copy, copying comes for free. So even if you pass it to the another person, it is still with you. That means that you can actually use this to use it again. So which essentially becomes 2,000 rupees may become 4,000, 4,000 may become 6,000, 6,000 may become 8,000, and so on and so forth. So that means that the privacy is, so this is a major factor. When you are going to the electronic form, how would you stop this double spending is a major challenge that has to be addressed, kind of a framework. If you are going to say, I have electronic cash instead of the classical currency notes. As I already mentioned, anonymity is achieved mainly because if you tender change or a currency note at a shop, he will not know that this is the number of the note and this is the person he has given, because he will not know whatever that one is. For those of you who don't know, you have to make a distinction between privacy and security. So now your name is private. That means that nobody knows unless somebody already knows you or you already made them known that you are such and such a person with a tag and so on and so forth. So that's how you get the anonymity in this one. Now the question is that how do we change this? How do we transform it into an electronic cash is one of the challenges. This was addressed by David Chaum long time back. He is a pioneer in many of these cryptographic applications and then founding technologies kind of a framework or the other. Now, what is the way you would be able to avoid double spending? One is obviously that whenever I get when I give it to somebody, he has to online verify whether this cash has been spent already or not. That means that somebody has to maintain an online database so that you say that this cash has already been spent by this person, he is no longer the owner, etc., kind of a framework. So the other aspect, that means that you have to have an online. As you know, that internet is always flaky. That is a characteristic of that. It is never possible to say that it will always be 24/7. So that means that you can have, this becomes an online e-cash. So now what would be the one what you would prefer is that an offline. That means that I don't care whether the internet is not there or not. It should be possible, just like in the classical way, the chances of that being counterfeited is very small. And so in the same sense, here also, when I give it to somebody, this is the currency, he should be able to use it at a later amount of time with a very little chance that this one is going to be, he is doing a double spending, and so I will not get the money for which I have shown that I have received this much money. So this is, first let us understand a simple technology, what it is called like an offline e-cash. That is in the offline world, online world. That means that I am going to maintain the internet is up 24/7. Based upon that, I will find out whether this has been used by such and such a person or not, kind of a thing. So now, if you look at the classical currency, there are two things coming into the picture. Naturally, you should have what are the ways in which cash is denoted. It has a number, it has an emblem, it has a signature, blah, 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 kind of a framework are there. And then the anonymity, as I mentioned, has to be achieved, means something like a blinding. He should not know what is the cash number. So no, that person should not have an idea of what is the number he has given it to me, kind of a framework are there. Let us see how many of these things can be realized in an informal way, because I may not go into the complete mathematics of that. But in the beginning, I will say some of these things so that it becomes easy for you to understand what is the challenge from going from in the electronic world kind of a frame. So now let us see how one can create an online e-cash scheme. For example, all of you know RSA signature. Now you can create an RSA signature from the bank, because here it is the bank that gives you the money, right? And that could not be forged. That could not be forged, but one which the bank will not recognize as to from whom it came from. That means that it should, it is very difficult for people to forge it, but the bank will not know who has tendered it, kind of a framework or the other. So now let us see how this can be achieved using some kind of a hashing and things like that. Now let us assume the money has a structure of the form, let us say x, x comma f of x to the cube root, that is 1 upon 3 and modulo n. N is some public modulus, and f and g are one-way functions. That means one-way functions is something like a, it is easy to given x, I can compute f of x, but inverse computing is difficult. And also, they also satisfy some properties or the other, and it should be infeasible to come up with a different y and z such that f of y is equal to f of z. So that means that there is no collision easily kind of a framework. There are many examples like the MD4 and then the MD5 and so on and so forth. Now let us see how one can do that. Now, what is the denotation of the money? It is x comma f of x to the power of 1 upon 3 and modulo n. So now the question is that only bank can find the cube root of modulus of n, because that is the one who is actually the money is being given, so that nobody can forge it kind of a frame. So it uses the one-way trap function f of x, so that forging is not possible. Now, what is the way if you are given x comma f of x to the power of 1 upon 3, and now if you are taking the cube to the power of 3, you will have y3 comma y leads to a valid money, even though the cube root was not taken. Only bank can create the money kind of a framework. So now, how does it allow blinding? So now what does that mean? Bank signs the value without knowing what the value it is signing, without knowing what value it is signing. And choose x, find f of x, and now choose a random number r and send f of x multiplied by r to the power of 3 to the bank. All are mod n kind of a framework. Now, what is the thing he can do? The bank can take raise it to the power, so he will get to the cube root. So now what he will get? R multiplied by f of x to the power of 1 upon 3. So now the bank neither sees R is a random number which is chosen by the person. So R f of x to the power of 1 upon 3 separately, but can only see the product. As I already mentioned, it is all in mod n arithmetic. So now when the bank sends R multiplied by f of x 1 upon 3 back to the person who wants the currency, and the person, because he is the person who has sent R, chosen the random number, he can divide it and he gets f of x to the power of 1 upon 3. And hence, the denotation he gets the currency x comma f of x to the power of 1 upon 3. That means that the person has the money that could only have been signed by the bank, yet the bank won't recognize it when it is deposited. And so now you can always look in the other routine aspect, which we will not do. So informally, what does that mean? Suppose you have lots of envelopes in which you have put something and ask the bank to sign and put it in a box, and you go there and pick one. The bank does not know, and you have paid some cash, and so he says you stand in the queue, you can pick one. So when you pick one, because it is random, the bank cannot assign that this is the currency I have given it to a kind of a framework or the other, and that's how you are going to get the anonymity kind of a framework or the other. So now, when you are going into the bank, you have to prove identity. Even if you show it identity to the bank, because if you assume that there is a huge box from which you can pick something or the other, and there is some trust that is involved, okay, this is 100 rupees, this is 500 rupees, etc. And now after you debiting the account, and you can pick that kind of a framework. Of course, if it is a 1,000 rupee note or a 500 rupee note, or a 2000 rupees note, you have to use different exponents. Like in this case, we have used the 3 f of x to the power of 1 upon 3. For something else, I can use 5, 7, and so on and so forth. But this is not of much importance. What is it you achieved? You have achieved anonymity through blinding of hashing kind of a framework or the other. So in online cache. So what are the issues still? It is an online cache. That means that if I go and check, it is possible he can actually spend it again before the other one deposit into the bank. Whoever deposits the first one is the person who will say you have got it kind of a framework or the other. So, and also the question is that he has to deposit in the bank only. He cannot give it to somebody else kind of a framework. Unlike the currencies, this is an advantage. That is where it is called the peer-to-peer in the Bitcoin. That means that if I have a currency note, A can give it to B can give it to C. Whereas in this electronic form, A has to give it to the bank credits it to you or gives the another currency note or something like that. And then you cannot directly give it to the third party kind of a framework. Is that clear? So now let us look at how in an offline cache can be obtained. How do you obtain an offline cache? So now in the online cache, what we have achieved is you have an anonymity have been achieved kind of a framework, and we have overcome double spend. And under the condition that I should be able to see it online kind of a framework or the other, that means everything is working online kind of a framework. So now, if I want to do offline, the probability that the person is double spending this money has to be very small kind of a framework. So what is the thing that what we can look at it kind of a framework is, we can say that the probably what one could do is that if somebody is trying to spend it again, he should be caught. Otherwise, his details should remain anonymous. That means anonymity will be the property that will be satisfied till he double spends kind of a framework. And this the probability, if it is like a 2 to the power of minus 12 or something, and then it's okay, and then you can go in for an offline cache kind of a framework or the other. So that means that what is the advantage? A person need not have to check with the bank as to whether the money has been spent or not. So that is where it is called the offline. He can take his own time and then deposit the money. And the probability he will not is very small kind of a framework. So how does it work kind of a framework or the other? I will just indicate a structure so that it will give you an idea of what are all the technology and the mathematics that goes in, and then it will become easy for you to say how it is always not so easy to go into the electronics technology for many of the contracts or the things that happens in the society. In this case, a form of cache is something like in the online cache, we said x comma f of x to the power of 1 upon 3 is the denotation of the cache. Here, instead of 1, you have something like a product of k by 2 numbers, where k is some kind of a security parameter that affects the chance of a cheater getting away with it. And that's how this, out of each of these k by 2 numbers is of the form, like in similar to f of x to the power of 1 upon 3, it is of the form f of xi comma yi to the power of 1 upon 3, where f is a 2-argument one-way function. In the online case, where it was a one-way function, whereas in this case, it is a 2-argument one-way function kind of a framework. Now, if you look at the xi has a structure which is itself composed of another function, another one-way function, g, of ai and ci, where ai and ci, where you have a random. So that means that Now yi is, now you note that xi is of the form g comma ai comma ci, where ai and ci are random numbers, and given that g is a one-way function. Now yi also has a structure similar to this. What it has is, it is again g of a of I exclusive or, that is what XOR means, and then you have exclusive OR with information. That is the first argument, it has some information, comma di, because di is another random number. What is info? Info is something that identifies the person's account number and concatenated with the serial number of the cache. So that means that this is some information which will be made known only when he spends the money again. That means he double spends, then his information, who is the person who is double spending, will be made known. That means that a currency note of such and such a number has been used by the person again whose account number is this, and because of all the structure of the bank accounts, etc., once you say this is the account number, you will know who is the person who is double spending and cheating it, kind of a framework are there. That is where you are using the exclusive OR. What is the way when you are tendering the cash? Let us just see. Now, as I already mentioned, xi has the structure of g of ai comma ci, and yi is of the form g of ai exclusive OR information comma di, where di is another random number, kind of a thing. So now, in case if one can find ai and ai exclusive OR information for some I, because that information is there anyway. And now if you take the exclusive OR, and now because you know ai, you will be able to find the information. So that means that for some I, one would know the identity of the Alice's identity, XORing would give the account. Thus, when a person double spends, his account will be revealed. And so now here, just something which I have not put it, is that what happens when you are giving it, you will ask k by 2 answers. It could be randomly, say 1, 0, 1, 0, 1, 0 kind of a framework are there. Now, when you are giving it again you are giving another random numbers of k by 2 vector. That means you are giving 1, 0, 1, 0, 1, 0 kind of a framework. Because it is random, at some point if he is double spending, it will be possible that it will clash with one of those numbers, and that's how the information will be revealed. And that is how k, that is 2 to the power of minus k, will indicate what is the k you should choose, so that what is the probability that it could be a double spending comes into the picture, kind of a framework are there. So what is this? What is the solution that was satisfied by the online cache? Online cache realized anonymity through blinding, but again it was not possible to do a peer-to-peer. Under the assumption 24/7 connectivity is possible, and then the offline it is not possible. There is no need of a online connectivity, and then there is a probability of double spending with some 2 to the power of minus k kind of a framework are there. What still is not possible is peer-to-peer. That means that if I get an electronic cash, I have to go to the bank and deposit and get the money, and I cannot pass that money to another third party kind of a framework. So now, is there any issue, any questions on this?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Can I speak, please? Yeah, I tell you, I am a professor in mechanical engineering. I deal with cold chain possibility of movement of food products. But I am not at all understanding this offline cryptocurrency and the formulas that you're writing in FDR. This is something which is very, very new to me.
Okay.
So I am going totally blank when you are making this information available to all of us. But this is what is my situation.
Okay.
Can you help me out?
Immediately I cannot help it. because if you don't know some of the basic things, it won't be possible for me to do that.
Because
And so let us.
I am not into a currency sort of. I am thinking blockchain as a possibility to understand how to move the product from one place as a food product like apple coming from Kashmir and going delivered at Kerala. So there is a supply chain and there is a blockchain. There is a hashtag. There is a other people who know how the product is moving, what is the temperature of the product. On that phase, that is what I understand the blockchain was. This is something of an offline cryptocurrency.
No, I think, what you are saying is that I don't want to know anything about the
No,
technology.
no,
Just hold on. You are saying I don't want to understand any technology of the BC. I want to use only as a blockchain and see what the applications are. Maybe towards the end, you will get an answer for that. Okay.
I am totally becoming blank in your teaching.
No, that is fine.
I'm sorry for saying this.
No, because you want to do it as a black box. I'm going into the black box, and so it will say black box for you. So that is the question. So like if you say it is a digital signature, now you say that I don't know, I just ask somebody to do that and I don't want to know it, I cannot do that because it is something I have to understand the technology, otherwise it is just like a...
Thank you very much.
No, people know machine learning. What does it mean by machine learning? Without knowing what they are doing, I just use TensorFlow. If you say that is the one, that is not the one what I am doing. Okay?
No, sir, it's okay. Sir. Thank you very much, sir. Very kind of you.
So, now the question is that what is the issue here when we are transforming from a society perspective a currency into an electronic cash, we need to have all the properties. You cannot say to the society like, no, I don't, you cannot send to somebody else. You can always have to deposit to the bank kind of a framework. So this is one of the main things that remained for a long time till the Bitcoin came into the picture. So this was one of the main things that come into the picture. And also here, what is the thing that you are assuming? Here, there is a bank, it's a trusted agency. So that means that I believe it, and then I have to have a trust. And now in the Bitcoin, there is no need of using a trusted party kind of a framework. That is what we will see it in the next part of the talk. See, the so now here, one of the main things is, this is based upon the public key cryptography because digital signature forms a core part of building a blockchain data structure of the Bitcoin. And so now here, you have a user. Just I will give you a brief without going into much of the things or the other. Every user is assigned two keys. One is a private key that is only known to the user. Earlier, they used it as private. Perhaps it should have been called secret because apart from the user, nobody else knows kind of a framework. Whereas privacy means you yourself can say whether this can be made public, whereas in this case, this private key of a public key has to be secret. You cannot do it from anyone else kind of a framework. Whereas public key is known to everyone kind of a framework are there. And so now here, what is the public key cryptography? If you say KU is the one which is public and KR is the private, and so now you can use E of KU as an encryption using the public key K of U. That means if I use a public key and then encrypt it, then it's only the person who has the secret key can decrypt it and use it kind of a framework. So now same here, you can decrypt using your private key kind of a framework. And if P is the plain text, Now, if you encrypt it and use the decryption, you get back the original text. So now here, the essence of the public key systems is you are knowing somebody's public key does not help you to find their private key or the secret key, because it has no notion. Whereas the public key is published, everyone on the net can find out your public key. And the encryption algorithm is also public. There is no secrecy about this kind of a framework. Only the owners of this public key know the private key, and difficulty lies in finding algorithms that satisfy a Diffie-Hellman criteria, like an RSA kind of a framework or the other. I will not look at the algorithm, just the public key usage. Suppose you send me E of KR of P, that means private key you have done, and that is stored in the encrypted message. Anyone can verify that decryption is a readable message only when you use the public key and confirm that only you could have sent that C. That means that I can say that this must have originated from him and nobody else kind of a framework or the other. But sending C over the net does not give you any privacy. Everyone knows the public key and can decrypt the C to get P. Authentication is obtained, but there is no confidentiality. That means that I know it must have been originated from this, because there is no confidentiality. Because if you say it is just like a billboard, on that billboard everyone knows the public key and he can decrypt it and see what is the thing or the other. So now what is the thing that happens here? In the sender, he sends the plain text. You have the sender's private key, he encrypts, and you have the encrypted text, and the encrypted text is decrypted using the sender's public key, and then you get back to receiver. So you get authentication, but there is no confidentiality kind of a framework. So it's a public information kind of a framework. Now the other way around, you can get the confidentiality, but no authentication. So how do you do? And now here in the sender, you use the receiver's public key, you encrypt it, and the encrypted text is decrypted, and you get the receiver. So you get confidentiality but no authentication kind of a framework. So what does that mean? That means that when you have used the public key, that means that anyone can do that kind of a framework or the other. And so that is how I cannot have any authentication, but it remains confidential, because it's only the person who has the secret key will be able to read it. So this is the basic thing what is used for the digital signature. And now this public key usage, there are two approaches can be combined for both confidentiality and authentication. And the sender encrypts the message with his or private key for authentication, and the resulting ciphertext is encrypted again using the receiver's public key for confidentiality. And the receiver first decrypts with the private key and decrypts with the sender's private key kind of a framework. So this gives you a basic structure in which you would have the public key kind of a framework. Now let us move to say how the blockchain or the Bitcoin has been built. To begin with, I will illustrate to say that how the blockchain basics comes into the picture using this signature kind of a framework. So now here, as I already mentioned, the notation has slightly changed. PK is made public. That means it is the secret key, and then the SK is private, which is called the secret, and P is called the private. And so PK is made public and then used to document. So now here, this one was the thing what I highlighted. And now here you have an SK, and you sign this document, it becomes the signature, and now it is used for authentication and not privacy, as I mentioned, kind of a framework. Now you can just check whether this signature is valid or invalid, and based upon which you can declare whether it is properly signed or not kind of a framework. So now, what is the thing that happens in the digital signatures and the Bitcoin? A Bitcoin is essentially a chain of digital signatures. Coin owners digitally sign their coins to transfer them to other recipients. Suppose Alice wants to move a Bitcoin to Bob. So like that, here you have the Alice, and then you have says that this is the public key of that, and this is the one which is to be sent, and one signs. So this becomes the signature Alice and Bob. It will have both, and now I can verify this PK, the PK Alice, and the signature is Alice and Bob, and now you can verify whether they are valid or not, kind of a framework or the other. So now if Bob wants to move his coins to Diana, so now again repetition has to be done, the same thing. You have already the signature of Alice and Bob, and now for which you have the public key, and now you are going to, because Bob wants to move, he uses the secret key and signs it, and this becomes the signature Alice, Bob, Diana kind of a framework, and that is the one which will go there kind of a framework. So now here, this is the combination function. You have Alice, etc., Diana and Bob, and now this is the combination function. And now how do you, what does the first signature look like? You see that this is the signature, what it would look like using the SK of Alice kind of a framework or the other. And now here, if you see what is double spending and how to prevent it is the question that one would address in this context kind of a framework or the other. So now here the Bitcoin uses the SHA-256 kind of a framework as the basic mechanism. We will not go into those details kind of a framework or the other. So now here you have this combination function, the SHA, and now here the question that what one has to address is how do you overcome the double spending? Spending the same digital cash asset more than once. It must be impossible. It is impossible to do, as we saw in the physical cash, and prevented in traditional banking system through concurrency control. For example, if I have taken car, I took this ring and gave the same money, I cannot use it, and this becomes the double spending kind of a framework. So how do I prevent the double spending? In the classic one, it was centralized. Transactions on coins go through a trusted third party, like here. So now here you have signature, and then you have 50 Bitcoin, 30 Bitcoin, same old story kind of a thing comes into the picture. That means you have a trusted party kind of a framework. So which one we would like to avoid in the context of Bitcoin kind of a framework. So now the Bitcoin is a decentralized network. It has a network of nodes that maintains a ledger. Network nodes agree to transaction order in which, like Alice first sent to Bob and Bob sent to Diana and all this kind of a framework. Network nodes work to agree on transactions order. That means they serialize the transaction on every coin, and that is the way you are going to prevent the double spending. Now the question comes, what is the ledger? And then another question is that how do you agree on the transaction order? Each one may be fighting with each other. Now, why should the network do? Because they don't get anything or the other. What incentives the network nodes to maintain the ledger kind of a framework? So now here, a ledger is the one where is blockchain. People should understand in the Bitcoin as proposed by Nakamoto, there is nothing like a blockchain being mentioned, but this is a thing that has fallen out, which is of more interest rather than the cryptocurrency, a kind of a framework. So now here you are grouping these transactions into blocks. Now you see blocks are chained to each other through pointers, hence the word blockchain. That means this was the transaction, x1 to x2, and then it went in through this, and you went on, and this is the genesis. That means that at this point, technically you are treating, if I have got money, let us say 1 Bitcoin, and now I'm going to trace with all the hands that has changed before it actually was available at the initial point of the genesis kind of a framework or the other. That means that the whole tracing is done. At what point, who was in charge of it, who was the owner, kind of a framework or the other. So now here, what is the ledger about? Each network node maintains its copy of the ledger. Note that there are lots of nodes. As we have seen in the network, you have a huge network kind of a framework or the other. So now each network node maintains its copy of the ledger. That means it is not exactly the same ledger. Now the question that what one has to happen is the ledger tamper-free? That means that once I write it, it should not be possible for me to change that, erase it, rewrite it, etc. kind of a framework. Now let us say what is the way the ledger happens kind of a framework. As I mentioned, blocks are connected through the hash pointers. That means you have this many transactions. You take the hash, through this hash it is connected to this, and now here there is another hash, and now hash 1, hash 2, hash 3, and there may be several things that comes into the picture. So each block contains the hash of the previous block. That means that you know integrity of this. If this one changes, then if this changes, integrity gets changed kind of a framework or the other. This hash gives each block its location in the blockchain. So tampering with the content of any block can easily be detected because there are so many things that has to be done through the SHA kind of a blinding function. So now the question is that how is the ledger tamper-free? Blocks are connected through hash pointers. Each block contains the hash of the previous block. This hash gives each block its location in the blockchain. Tampering content of any block can easily be detected, and replacing a consistent blockchain with another tampered consistent blockchain should be made very hard. That means that, for example, if this one was the consistent blockchain, if this one was replaced by this one, I have to show this becomes inconsistent, and the amount of effort that is needed is enormous kind of a framework. And that is the basis in which you are using the underlying mathematics and the technology kind of a framework or the other. So now here, the network nodes, that means that if I have to replace this, the amount of effort that I have to do is enormous, and that is how I'm going to maintain it kind of a framework or the other. So now if you look at the network nodes, you have a big picture. You have various server nodes, mining nodes across the world kind of a framework or the other. So how do they make progress? And the ledger is fully replicated to all the network nodes. That means that you are distributed at all the network nodes. Now to make any progress at any point, network nodes group new transactions into a block, because many persons may be asking, this one is to be sent and I want to get it, etc. kind of a framework. Blocks are fixed in size, 1 megabyte. Network nodes validate new transactions to make sure that the transactions on the new block do not conflict with each other. It's the simple accounting kind of a framework. What is the thing that you have been sent? And that means that whatever you have, if you have sent it, you have to subtract it. And transactions on the new block do not conflict with the previous block transaction. That means that in the hash, what you have, if you have this one, it is connected, it should make sure that these transactions do not conflict with this kind of a framework or the other. So these are the things that has to be validated. And now the network nodes need to agree on the next block to be added to the blockchain. So now what happens? Each node has set up all these nodes kind of a framework or the other. Now on the global one, which is accessible, which is agreed on that kind of a framework, all the network nodes which are participating have to agree. It is a tree. Like if you have seen, that means that I have already started from, this is the root, and from here, this thing has been generated up to this point. And now whether similarly, there will be another one kind of a framework, which is the thing that has to be connected next block is the one which is based upon the consensus algorithms kind of a framework or the other. Consensus, you should say consensus means what? There is a difference between the majority and the consensus. Consensus means that every node agree on the next block to be added to the blockchain kind of a framework or the other. So there are very varieties of consensus problems. So the problem statement I can say in this limited way. given n processes and one leader, it is an agreement. All correct processes agree on the same value. And validity, if initiator does not fail, all correct processes agree on its value. And then you have various types of failure, etc., which I am not going to go into the detail. In the Bitcoin, Nakamoto's consensus, intuitively network nodes race to solve a puzzle. So now I would say that you have collected all the new blocks, and then you have to say that who is the person who is capable of adding the next block. And now I create a puzzle so that whoever solves this puzzle, then he would be able to add that puzzle into the ledger. Once a network node finds, that means called a mining, a solution, it acts as block of transactions to the blockchain. It multicasts the solution to the other network nodes. Other network nodes accept and verify the solution, kind of a framework or the other. So now let us see how this actually goes into the structure, kind of a framework or the other. So now here we have seen these are the transactions, how would they look like? And now you also want to see they always have to be unique, and that is where I use the timestamp server for each of the blocks that have been added. For example, here a timestamp server works by taking a hash of the block of items to be timestamped and widely publishing the hash, such as in a newspaper or a Usenet post, kind of a framework. The timestamp proves that the data must have been existed at the time, obviously, in order to get into the hash. Like when you are going back and back, it must be the case the time has to be earlier than this. If it is current, when I'm going to the previous one, that timestamp has to be less than what it is now. Each timestamp includes the previous timestamp in its hash, forming a chain with each additional timestamp reinforcing the ones before it, kind of a frame. So that essentially amounts to saying implementing the distributed time server. And so it's a distributed system with possible concurrent transactions to arrive at a linear ledger. That means that is where you have the blockchain. That means everyone has agreed. This is the blockchain that has been agreed to by every node, kind of a framework or the other. However, locally, you may have different structures like a tree, kind of a framework or the other. The puzzle, as I mentioned, which is called the proof of work, which involves scanning for a value that when hashed, such as the SHA-256, as I mentioned, the hash begins with a number of 0 bits. I can say 7 0 should be there. When it hashes 8 zeros, etc., kind of a framework or the other. So this one is known. The average work required is exponential in the number of 0 bits required and can be verified by executing a single hash. That means that apart from technically enumeration, there is no shortcut to computing this kind of a framework or the other. There is, so in other words, some kind of a sequentiality is embedded, and that is the reason why this becomes a puzzle and becomes a challenging kind of a framework. So now here, if you see here, you have this block, and you have this block, and you have this previous hash, and you have put a nonce. That means that nobody has used it once. And so this one is again something, and now this becomes the linear blockchain, and these are the transactions that have happened. This is one block, and this is one block, and this is the linear sequence of blocks. For the timestamp network, now implement the proof of work by incrementing a nonce in the block until a value is found that gives the block's hash the required number of 0 bits. That means if you add just one, what would be the thing that would happen, kind of a framework? Once the CPU effort has been expended to make it satisfy the proof of work, the block cannot be changed without redoing the work, as later blocks are chained after it. And now the work to change the block would include redoing all the blocks after it, kind of a framework. So now the proof of work solves the problem of determining representation in majority decision making. If the majority were based on one IP address, one vote, it could be subverted by anyone able to allocate many IPs. So that means that it is not based on IP. So it is essentially one CPU, one vote kind of a framework. Otherwise, with one CPU, you could have allocated many of the IPs kind of a framework or the other. That means it is based upon the actual computing power you would have kind of a framework. The majority decision is represented by the longest chain, which has the greatest proof of work effort invested in it. That means that the majority decision is agreed to by all the things are there. You go on saying it must have been the longest chain. That is the point wherein you are going to add the next block, whoever has won the POW puzzle kind of a thing. If a majority of the CPU power is controlled by honest node, the honest chain will grow fastest and outspace any competing chains kind of a framework are there. So to modify a past block, and that is where we said it becomes difficult as we saw earlier, an attacker would have to redo the puzzle of the block and all blocks after it, and then catch up with and surpass the work of all the honest nodes, which is the one which becomes extremely difficult, and it is not possible to be done in the normal circumstances kind of a framework or the other. So the probability of a slow attacker catching up diminishes exponentially as subsequent blocks are added. That means that how can you attack if you are going on adding the new block? Your probability to win or attack of work difficulty is adjust the difficulty every 2016 blocks. And it is expected 20,160 minutes to mine. That means it is 10 minutes per block. Actual time is nothing but the timestamp of the block of 2016 minus the timestamp of the block 1, and the new difficulty is nothing but the old difficulty multiplied by the expected over actual, and difficulty decreases if actual is greater than expected. Otherwise, it goes on increasing kind of a framework. So now here, what is the one? So now the new transactions, that means anyone can join, come there, or broadcast to all the nodes. Each node collects new transactions into a block. Each node works on finding a difficult POW for its block. When a node finds a POW, that means that he is the winner. It broadcasts the block to all the nodes. Nodes accept the block only if all transactions on it are valid and not already spent. This is one of the important things what you have to see. When he has validated and the others one, they will throw it out if it is not valid kind of a framework or the other. So now nodes express their acceptance of the block by working on creating the next block in the chain using the hash of the accepted block as the previous hash kind of a framework. So now the third question, why the network should work? Because he is not even interested in. So now that is where you have a notion of incentives coming into the Bitcoin. The first transaction in a block is a special transaction that starts a new coin owned by the creator of the block. This adds an incentive for nodes to support the network and provides a way to initially distribute coins into circulation since there is no central authority to issue them. The steady addition of a constant amount of new coins is analogous to gold miners expending resources to add gold to the circulation kind of a framework. Here it is the CPU time and electricity that has been spent kind of a framework or the other. So the incentive can also be funded with the transaction fees. If the output value of a transaction is less than its input value, the difference is a transaction fee that has been added to the incentive value of the block containing the transaction. Once a predetermined number of coins have entered the circulation, the incentive can transition entirely to transaction fees and be completely inflation-free kind of a framework. So incentives may help encourage nodes to stay honest. If a greedy attacker is able to assemble more CPU power than all the honest nodes, he would have to choose between using it to defraud people by stealing back his payments or using it to generate new coins. He ought to find it more profitable to play by the rules, such rules that favor him with more new coins than everyone else combined, and than to undermine the system and the validity of his own wealth. So these are something on the displays reclaiming. I will not go into where people could use the Merkle tree kind of a framework or the other. So now here, many of these optimizations, it is possible to verify payments without running a full network node. For example, a user only needs to keep a copy of the block headers of the longest proof of work chain, which can get by querying the network nodes until he is convinced the longest chain and obtain the Merkle branch linking the transaction to the block it is timestamped in. He cannot check the transaction for himself, but by linking it to a place in the chain, he can see that a network node has accepted it, and blocks added after it further confirm the network has accepted it, kind of a framework or the other. As you see, it is the longest proof of chain. So here you have the Merkle root. You can say what are the things that I don't need to check it, kind of a framework. That's how you are going to optimize. And now verification is reliable as long as honest nodes control the network, but is more vulnerable if the network is overpowered by an attacker. While network nodes can verify transactions for themselves, the simplified method can be fooled by an attacker's fabricated transaction for as long as the attacker can continue to overpower the network. One strategy to protect against this would be to accept alerts from network nodes when they detect an invalid, prompting the user software to download the full block and alerted transactions to confirm the inconsistency. Businesses that receive frequent payments will probably still want to run their own nodes for more independent security and quicker verification. I will not go into those details. And privacy is again, as you see, the traditional banking model achieves a level of privacy by limiting access to information to the parties involved in a trusted third party. That means obscurity. Like what most of the time in India, it is safe because it's obscure. Many people don't know where it exists or how one can access it. So the necessity to announce all transactions publicly precludes this method. But privacy can still be maintained by breaking the flow of information in another place by keeping the public keys anonymous, kind of a framework. Public can see that someone is sending an amount to someone else, but without information linking the transaction to anyone. And this is similar to the level of information that is released by stock exchanges, where the time and size of individual trades, the tape is made public, but without telling who the parties are, kind of a thing. As an additional firewall, a new key pair should be used for each transaction to keep them from being linked to a common owner. That means that I can have many public and secret key pairs, and some linking is still unavoidable with multi-input transactions that necessarily reveal that your inputs were owned by the same owner. And the risk is that if the owner of a key is revealed, a linking could reveal other transactions that belong to the same owner. What kind of attacks are possible, kind of a framework or the other coming into the picture? The scenario of an attacker trying to generate an alternate chain faster than the honest chain, kind of a framework. Maybe I will use the other thing, which will also give you a much easier graphic illustration, kind of a framework or the other, where when I illustrate this. So now here, if you see here, the main problem that what one has happened is, how does an attack is possible is essentially due to the forking. Assume that this one was the point up to this point. When it is possible, two nodes solve the same POW puzzle at the same time. That means they can add 2 blocks. It could be the case Bob tries to double spend the same coin twice in these 2 transaction kind of a framework or the other. So that means that whereas all these things don't have any conflicts, it is possible the transactions in these forked ones might have conflicts, and it could lead to the double spending, and forks have to be eliminated kind of a framework. For example, here miners join the longest thing. So now if you have, and this becomes the longest chain, one will not add to this chain, and this becomes a blockchain kind of a framework or the other. So now here, and now transactions on this block have to be resubmitted again to the whole network, and so one can see where it can get added here. And so again, because it's only one chain, and if you go from here to the genesis, all of them are valid, and so there is no conflict at all, and so there is no possibility of a double spending kind of a framework or there. So now here in the 51% attack, if the 51% of the computation power are malicious, that is CPUs, they can cooperate to form the chain at any network kind of a framework, and it can lead to the double spending kind of a framework or the other, which means you require at least 51% of the computation, or this one, I am recomputing this and then trying to replace this by something else kind of a framework or the other. And so now here you have a selfish mining. So sometimes there is no reason for actually announcing this. You can go on keeping it till it has become so powerful that nobody else will be adding. So when one has added, and this becomes no longer valid, and so you become, this becomes a selfish mining. So this, he will lose the money kind of a framework or the other. So now here, what are the things that come into the picture? So high transaction confirmation latency and probabilistic consistency guarantees, and now then low transactions per second, which is the average of 3 to 7 transactions per second. And now, as you compare it to the MasterCard or the Visa, where thousands of things can happen. And now here in the Bitcoin, a new block is added every 10 minutes. And then here, if you say in about in 1 hour, to 2 hours, you would be able to say that it is indeed correct kind of a framework or the other kind of a framework or the other. So which essentially means 2 obvious options for increasing Bitcoin's transaction throughput: increase the size of blocks or decrease the block interval. And now the question is that why they don't work? Decreases the fairness, giving the large miners an advantage, requires more storage space and verification time, and leads to higher number of forks kind of a framework. So that's how you have many other alternatives kind of a framework or the other. I will not go into some of these details kind of a framework or the other. Let me summarize by going into some kind of an application kind of a framework or the other. So which what one has attracted the blockchain kind of a framework or the other. So now if you see the blockchain summary, the traditional one was a traditional trusted environment. You have organization 1, you have organization 2, you have another organization, and this is trusted, this is trusted, this is trusted. Now this one whole thing has been made into a network. No node is trusted kind of a framework or the other, because it is by consensus. So it's a blockchain, trustless environment kind of a framework or the other. So now the question you may ask is that where is the trust? The technology, one is in the technology, the servers, the mathematics, and the code you write. So if these are wrong, then obviously you will be in problem or the other. So now if you look at the problems of the trusted third parties, you have a problem of centralization, which leads to single point of failure. And you have access control system. You have to define who are the persons who are authorized to access it kind of a framework. And it always is difficult to interoperate and collaborate for different kinds of things or the other. Having a trusted party is an assumption behind most API-centric architecture kind of a framework. Whereas in a blockchain network, you have an immutable data store, public or a private ledger. Every node hosts a replica. That means this is replicated here, kind of a framework. No central owner. Transaction is verified by the whole network. And so some benefits, it decreases the transaction cost and improve robustness. Communicate peer-to-peer in a trustless environment. As we said in the electronic cash, A can send a Bitcoin to B, and B can send the same Bitcoin to C, and so on and so forth. It does not have to deposit in the bank. But the question is that if a Bitcoin has to be changed to currency, I have to go to an exchange and change it. And this is a possible where you can reveal some of the things are there. Immutable public ledger allows tracking ownership of real world and digital assets, and conditional payments in complex business logic using the smart contracts and enable true autonomous entities like the IoT devices and distributed organization. And you can define blockchain in some of the different ways. One, as a distributed ledger, it's also called the DLT technology. That means a distributed ledger technology. A distributed ledger is an append-only store of transactions that is distributed across many machines. And in the second one, a blockchain is a distributed ledger that is structured into linked list of blocks. Each block contains an ordered set of transactions, and typical solutions use cryptographic hashes to secure the link from one block to its predecessor. And then we have discussed some of these data structures already. And so now here, the question is that, is it possible to be used for, is it useful only for currencies kind of a framework or the other? So now if you come into the picture, how can this can be exchanged to the dollar or something else kind of a framework, or can also be used for something else other than linking on the fiat currency. And the cryptocurrency is a single use currency. Cryptocurrency as an alternative to fiat currency is not mature enough so that we can use this. However, the technological guarantees like double spending avoidance is possible, traceability, auditability, and transparency have promising applications in the smart governance. And then you have the smart contract, which is the second generation kind of a framework. So design of single user cryptocurrency coins, issuer issues cryptocurrency, a fixed quantity to beneficiaries. Beneficiaries either transfer the currency to designated addresses or keep it unspent. All designated addresses redeem the cryptocurrency at the issuer address, and no transfer is allowed among the beneficiaries, unlike the fiat currency. And in the single-use currency, prepaid smart meters for BPL families, fertilizer subsidy, list of fertilizer shops, health insurance, and public works audit kind of a framework or the other. So it's essentially a blockchain framework or the other. So just to bust some of the myths, myth is solves every problem. Reality is it's a kind of a database. There is a difference between the concurrent database and this, which I will not go. And in the myth is it is trustless, can shift trust and spread trust, like what I said. It is on technology, mathematics, code, etc. kind of a framework. Secure, focus is on integrity, not confidentiality. Smart contracts or legal contracts may help execute parts of some legal contracts. Immutable, many only offer probabilistic immutability, need to waste electricity, myth. Emerging blockchains are more efficient kind of a framework or the other. So now here you can do varieties of things like what you see the Ripple. Blockchain may help reduce cost and time of remittances, but challenges remain for solutions. Blockchains and smart contracts may make it possible to create programmable money. For example, in the Ripple, the time that is involved by the time it reaches the destination is so small, the variation in the currency is very small, and so that works out to be fine with respect to the time that normally takes for exchange from one country to another country. Supply chains are a highly promising domain for the blockchain. Many enable significant opportunities for trade, finance, and insurance. Now, if you see the agricultural supply chain, you have the conventional point-to-point messaging and event aggregation, and event tracking on blockchain, point-to-point messaging and event aggregation, and you have the supply chain process coordination on blockchain can be written as if it is a smart contract, and secure contract negotiation kind of a framework also can be done, so that like a land which one is going to be tendered on electronically kind of a framework or the other. Healthcare, it becomes effectively usable kind of a framework based public healthcare system, accounting doctors and health service, etc., effective healthcare during disasters, etc., kind of a framework. Land management, this is something, the land and property records on blockchain has potential of reduction and multiple ownership and claim litigations. Of course, there is a problem in a sense. You also have to worry about the geographical database. The blockchain and the smart contracts are something which has to be faithfully transformed from the original paper contracts. Agriculture, you can also say you have a choice of a crop based on the demand, because you have a lot of data on the demand indicators from market and entering into future and options. Farm loans against future receipts safeguarded by crop insurance, transparent and fair scheduling of shared farm equipments, and agriculture post-harvest provenance. That means you can record right from beginning of agricultural produce, periodic event recording using tamper-proof agriculture IoT sensors, and disintermediation, matching of producers to consumers, and you have public service delivery, etc., kind of a framework or the other. So it's a distributed, resilient database, transparent to all participants, and you have a continuous audibility, and you can always choose a trade-off between various properties. You have the speed, you have the decentralized trust, censorship resistance, openness, and transaction. That's how you are going to get permissionless, permission, etc., kind of a framework or the other. Choice of the platform, interoperability of the blockchains, privacy of the data on the blockchains, and automatic rule transformation into smart contracts, and of course data veracity as in land records kind of a framework or the other. So governance rules in the digital India, transforming it into a smart contracts is a real challenge for the digital India kind of a framework. But thank you. If you have any questions, feel free to let me know.
Thank you so much, sir.
Yeah.
Anybody having any queries, please unmute and ask your queries. Or you can type the query in the chat box. Because some queries I have seen, but I have to rejoin, so that's why the chat text has been removed. So anybody have any queries, then please unmute yourself and ask the question.
Hello, sir.
Yeah. Yes, Nawaz.
Yes, sir. Actually, sir, can we use the blockchain in whole IoT?
Can you repeat?
Yeah, blockchain. Is it possible to use blockchain in the whole IoT?
In IoT, you know, one of the main issues is that it all depends upon whether the gateway is complex or very small. Like the
that is the reason, sir. I am saying that it is very complex to use in IoT.
No. The question is that lots of IoTs get connected to one gateway.
Yes,
one gateway is fairly large, for which power is not a problem. Whereas for each of the IoTs, it is something, because it is blockchain is power hungry, you cannot use it for small IoT devices. But if you are going to use it for gateways, then it should be possible to use it, and people have used it, so that from this one can also learn what are the things. For example, many IoTs are connected to a gateway. Now I want to detect which are the IoTs which are not functioning, because if they are not functioning, I can remove it. Some of these things can be used on a blockchain, and so that becomes an advantage.
Sir, one question from Sminesian. Is the hash function used is same or different in the chain?
It is the same. Yeah, it is same. SHA-256.
One more question by.
Yeah.
You all please unmute yourself. Sorry, you all please mute yourself. Please mute yourself. I will be asking on behalf. So one question from Raju Chittiala. We have cybersecurity technology. Still, we need blockchain technology. Why?
No, see, the question that what one has happened is the cyber security is a process. That means that you are only assume that you are secure till somebody finds a counterexample. In the blockchain, if I can assure that integrity is being maintained, using the integrity to overcome that integrity, if it takes an enormous amount of time, then the cyber intruders will not get into that kind of a framework. In the current scenario, what happens is that if you are using a blockchain, then it is very hard to make it overcome the integrity that is embedded in the blockchain. And that is the reason you always try to see how blockchain could be combined. You know, there are many issues that are associated with what is the notion of security. Security is not part of the blockchain. It is the integrity that is part of the blockchain. And now if I am going to use the integrity that can be effectively used for cyber security operations kind of a framework are there.
Okay, thank you, sir. Any other queries? You please type in the chat box.
See, one of the questions I see on the chat box is for education. See, the question that what one is coming into the picture for education is, one of the things is that provenance gives a complete view of what are the things. And now it is the history also that can be effectively used for teaching. So now if you say many of the things that are available on the blockchain, what all you have taught over the years and how that can be, what is the aspect that I can be used to enhance it, like using machine learning, etc., can be used. But per se, it does not make much to say that just for the sake of using blockchain, I can use it kind of a framework or the other. When I'm going to keep track of the history, for example, medical research, medical labs, each lab has its own data. They don't want to share it, because they want to get the credit for what they have worked it. And so now, if I combine many labs' work, for example, even in the vaccine situations, many of them, they combine together to say, you have to really reflect what is the way in which the whole discovery has come into the picture. I should give the proper credit to each one of them, and it should not be told to anyone else except for public good or for public knowledge kind of a framework. This is where you can always bring in the blockchain, machine intelligence, and security, all of them together. There is nothing like a one-line solution for many of these things are there.
Sir, one more question from Swarup Nandi.
Yeah.
Are the algorithms of cryptography applicable in blockchain?
Yeah. You see, you can always create second level of this one. What should be on the blockchain? What should not be on the blockchain? For example, in many healthcare systems, all the things will not be on the blockchain. So that in any case, it's only small parts that will be available. And the second level, you can create your own cryptographic algorithm, cryptographic hash. What is the way you want to manage many of the electronic health records and so on and so forth.
So one more question from Devi.
Yeah, you know, forking means it is double spending. So if you can avoid the double spending, that means there is no fork kind of a framework. Now, if you take that large number of persons are honest, technically there will be only one linear blockchain kind of a framework or the other. So whereas now you are also going to combine private and public, because many of them, they don't want to give everything. So you will have a private blockchain which will be forking, and then you will have one public which could be linear kind of a framework.
Sir, one question is, can we use cryptocurrency to purchase items from Big Bazaar / Amazon using blockchain technology?
In the as far as cryptocurrency is concerned, this is not accepted in the government of India. In the countries where it is, you can always use it. Okay.
Another query is, which platform to use to create applications on blockchain?
No, there are many things, including like Ethereum, Hyperledger, and there are so many things which has been done for, and Corda is also Corda also is there, which is not technically a blockchain. It is almost like a signal communication system based upon what you want. That is the one, rather than for the heck of using the blockchain based upon your needs, you can use it kind of a framework or the other. If you think your own database system is good enough, don't use blockchain. If you think you cannot use it, for example, land records, I don't think the database will work. In the case, if you want to do something there, you have a blockchain, how the asset is going to be represented, how the geographical database is going to be done, how the correctness is there, how the fairness is there, and all these things can be built into the picture kind of a framework. In all these things, the question that comes into the picture is that how fair it is for every stakeholder kind of a framework are there.
Thank you, sir. Another query is, if there is any issue with blockchain, who will resolve the issue as there is no third party?
No, it's a question in the sense that it is the whole set of persons they have to resolve it. All the persons who are participating, if they find that this is the problem, they have to solve it.
So they follow some consensus.
Yeah, in a sense, that is the one which is agreed upon, right? If all of them say you have cheated it, and then you conclude 99% conclude that this person has cheated, he has to be given, assuming there are suitable ways in which one can recover it kind of a framework are there.
Okay, sir. Rest of the questions are more or less you have already answered. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
And thank you all the participants for attending
you.
this session.
Thank you for patiently listening. Thank you. Bye.
Okay. All attendances, please, I've already circulated the Google form. Please give your attendance.
Sir, can you share the resource person's email ID, sir?
I think
I want.
you have it. I think
No,
your
sir,
person shamasundar@gmail.com. So you can do.
Yeah, I have shared it.
Yeah.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, all the participants.